He also knew that when the grand jury came back with a finding of no bill, and he was certain that they would find no bill, that exoneration would not completely pull him out of the hole he'd fallen into. He sat down at his desk, a gray, metal, standard-issue desk, wedged into a cubicle identical to the one he sat in 8 years earlier when he first became a detective. That first promotion to detective sent him to the sex crimes unit, a job that had its good side and its bad side. He got a kick out of the prostitution stings, especially when he plastered the mugshots of the patrons all over the internet. But the child abuse cases sickened him. One day, during an interview with a man who videotaped his abuse of a mentally disabled girl, Alexander leaned into the man and whispered, "You'd better hope that you go to prison, because if you walk away from this, I'll hunt you down and kill you myself." That incident ended Alexander's stint in sex crimes. It wasn't a demotion or punishment that moved him out of sex crimes. In fact, his commander never found out about that comment. As far as she was concerned, Alexander did a bang-up job of getting a sexual offender off the street. But Alexander told that story to his big brother Max, also a detective, but in homicide. It was Max who prodded Alexander into asking for the transfer. That's how, after 3 years in sex crimes, Alexander moved to narcotics, and from there joined the Joint Drug Enforcement Task Force. And then came the fall of the task force. Alexander sat down at his cubicle in the frauds unit and stared at the stacks of reports awaiting his attention. He felt as though he'd been sent back to the kiddie table, removed from the adult conversations that whispered around him. He could feel the icy stares of the other detectives in the room, men and women who, when Alexander approached, parted like a school of anchovies in the path of a shark. They fed on the rumors and knew nothing about the hell that Alexander went through in his days in narcotics. They knew nothing about the gray areas that a man had to walk when working undercover. They had no inkling of the sacrifices that it took to get in tight with the right group of bad guys. They knew little beyond the dark whispers that swirled in his wake as he passed by. During his days on the task force, Alexander stood shoulder to shoulder with men who would one day try to kill him. He had set up one of the biggest sting operations in Minnesota history, an operation that led to his first, and only, bullet wound, a shot to his pelvis that cracked his ilium. But that arrest also led to his Medal of Valor and the parade of well-wishers, everyone from patrol officers to senators, congratulating him on his outstanding work as a detective. But that was before the fall of the task force, before the newspaper articles, the federal investigation, and the grand jury. That was before the backslide that landed him in the frauds unit, in the basement of City Hall. Because of the stupidity of others, he'd become a pariah, a man so loathsome that none of his fellow detectives even deigned to offer him a cup of coffee. Now, every day, Alexander Rupert walked to his cubicle in the frauds unit, where he would sit and gnaw on the bridle and bit of his resentment. He cursed those detectives from the task force whose ineptitude stained them all. He also cursed the detectives around him who had judged him without giving him a chance. After 3 months, he still found it hard to fight through the muddle of bad thoughts that stirred in his head. Yet, in a way, he preferred the agitation of that resentment to the calm that lay behind it. On those rare occasions when his bitterness fell quiet, he could feel the loneliness, the stigma of being an outcast. He could feel the full force of his ostracism, powerful and cold like a winter wind. He'd never known anything so consuming.